This QDS video will build a sample ACASI survey and then demonstrate showing different types of questions and responses, and finally looked at the saved ACASI data file. Once you've completed development in the Design Studio, you'll want to build your ACASI control file. This is the file that interviewers will use to administer your questionnaire. If you just need to test parts of your specifications, it's easiest to use the preview tool that was added in QDS version 4.0. See our video about using preview for a full description of that feature. To build your control file, go to the Build menu and then select ACASI Application. This will open the dialog box and the default name will be listed in the file name box. You can see that that's a combination of the name of your Design Studio file plus the language abbreviation, which here is EN for English, plus ACASI, and then the extension will always be .qsi. Make sure and make a note of that extension. If you wish to change any options, you'll click the Options button that's located here at the bottom of the box. Note that you can also set build options from the Options menu. We're going to take a look at some key options we're using during this demo. On the Operations tab, which is the first tab that'll open, if you want to allow keyboard support, make sure you have that checked. That's the first box. If you want to restrict use of refuse to answer so that it's only allowable with a special key combination, you would check that second option. Hiding disallowed special response buttons is often a good option to check. And then the other options you may want to change are to always check the Save Interviews Without Prompting. That's generally recommended. And then the last option is that Generate Unique Data File for each interview. And we'll show you what that looks like at the end when we're taking a look at the saved interview file. Finally, if you want to change the pause between screens, you can make that shorter for testing. And for ACASI surveys, it's generally good to have an exit password, and that you can set in this bottom box, and that is optional. There's several other tabs where you can set options for things like audio, if you're doing an audio with your survey, which we will not be doing that for the demo. You can also change the colors, for example, for your ACASI screen. After you've set all your options, go ahead and click OK. Be sure to look at all the available ACASI options in our QDS online help. And then you can go ahead and select Save. You will be asked if you'd like to try out the control file now. If you say yes, the first screen of the survey will open. Alternately, note that you can also open up your ACASI survey by selecting the file name from Windows Explorer or similar. Note that the extension of an ACASI control file once again is .qsi, and the type is QDS Self-Interview Control File. Once you double click on this or select it and open from here, then it will also open to the first screen of your ACASI survey. Note that for this demonstration, there will not be audio reading the questions and responses out loud. However, do note that QDS ACASI supports both AT&T natural voices or recorded audio files. On this first screen, you're seeing a display of the current date and time as recorded from the computer. It's usually a good idea to have these first displayed. They are added in the Design Studio with an automatic date and time type elements. If they are incorrect, the interviewer can exit and correct those to make sure they're starting out with the correct date and time for their survey. And then that information is saved in your data set. After you select Next Question, you'll be on the first screen where you can enter what is a numeric type item for subject ID. We can use the keypad or the keyboard since we selected that build option. Our next screen shows what is an information element, and this is just information to the participant that does not expect a response. We'll click Next Question to continue. The next example here is a gender type response for a data element, and you have set buttons for male and female, and if you are using this for a different language survey, you can customize the buttons for your particular language. We will make a selection, and then it automatically goes ahead to the next question. This next item is a date type response, asking what is your date of birth, and you can use these buttons on the right to scroll through the responses and enter the correct one for your survey. Note that the order of these month, day, and year items can be set also as an ACASI build option so that you can have these in a different order if you prefer on the screen. After we're done, we'll go ahead and click Next Question. This next item is a check all that apply, and for here you can simply check or uncheck the items you would like to choose. For this item, we have added an other response type. If we select Next Question, we've set it up in the Design Studio so that we'll go to a screen asking us to specify other race, which we can type in with the keyboard or use the on-screen letters, or at any time during your ACASI survey, if you decide you've made an error or that the respondent wants to go back, you can go ahead and select Previous Question. That will take you back, and we're going to go ahead and uncheck Other and go ahead and say Next Question again. Now you'll notice that we skipped over that Specify screen, and that was something that was set up in the Design Studio as a skip element. This next item here is a Pick One, asking about current marital status, and we can make our selection by clicking on one of the choices. And once we do select that, since it's a Pick One, we'll automatically go ahead. And here we've added another information element screen that's alerting our respondent that we're now going to ask a next set of questions about their health. Once we've read that, we'll go ahead and select Next Question. Now we have an example of a yes/no type item. Has a healthcare provider recommended that you receive a flu vaccine? And again, these are picture type buttons that represent yes and no, and these could also be customized for a different language survey. And you'll notice our special codes here on the side. We could select don't know or not applicable, and again, we allowed those in the Design Studio. And again, if we want to refuse to answer a question, we set it up in the build options. So if we click a special key, we can now see the Refuse to Answer button, and we can select that one as well. And once we do that, we go right ahead to the next screen because that was a yes/no type item. Next, we have what we call a rating scale type item, and here we have numbers on a line, and we can click on the line to select a number, or we can also enter it on the keyboard. Either way works just fine, and for this we have put in endpoints indicating a 0 represents worst possible health or a 10 represents best possible health. And again, this was set up as a rating type response in the Design Studio. Now, similar to that, but where you may want to have a case where you want to enter a label for some intermediate points, such as a 5 being moderate care, and we had a 1 being worst possible care, and a 10 being best possible care for our question asking about medical care. If you want to set up a rating scale like this, you would use a response card. And if you're using a response card for a rating type scale, you can add intermediate labels as well. And we can pick our response and then go to Next Question. Next, we have what's called a time span type response, and this particular example is asking how long has it been since your last medical appointment? And we have options in the Design Studio to set this up in any type of increment. Here in our example, we have years, months, and days. You could also have weeks or even hours, minutes, and seconds. So if we want to say it's been maybe a year and a half since our last medical appointment, we can put on a 1 for year, and then 6 for month, and then 0 for days. And you can also have options where you could leave, say, months and days blank if you needed to give your respondents that type of option. After we've entered our selections, we go ahead and put in next question to continue. This next option is also a pick one, but we've used a fairly common scale that uses not at all to extremely, and we've wanted to use this for multiple questions in a row, so we have set this up as a pick one response card. You'll use a response card in the Design Studio when you want to set up responses that will repeat throughout your survey. So we'll go ahead and select a response, and you'll notice this next question here, how much were you distressed by faintness, has that same series of responses, and we'll click another response. This next item has a ranking type response asking to rank your top 3 exercise activities from 1 to 3. It's set up in the Design Studio so that you can only rank 3 items. As you click each button, it will progressively rank your items. After you have chosen 3, you're not able to select any more. You'll notice those buttons are grayed out. If the respondent wants to start again, they can select clear and then make new selections, or they can also uncheck the lower ranked items to make new selections. You'll notice that you do need to have at least one item checked in order to proceed to next question. All of those options were set up in the Design Studio. This last screen is displaying a thank you to the respondent. So then after here, when we select next question, it is going to ask us for that exit password. As we mentioned when we were talking about build options, we'll go ahead and enter the password that we specified there in order to end the survey. This is a good idea to do to prevent the respondent from exiting without staff assistance. After entering the password, now you'll see a pop-up that says, do you want to continue with another interview? If you don't, you can go ahead and say no. And to exit ACASI, you can go to that interview menu here at the top left and go to interview and then exit to close ACASI. To see the saved data from the interview, you'll go back to the folder that contains that QSI ACASI interview control file, which you can see that here in the top of the listing. Again, that type is QDS self-interview control file. You're also going to have a file that has the extension .log every time you complete an interview. This is just a text document. It is generally empty unless you have added interviewer comments, so which you typically wouldn't have for an ACASI survey, but if any interviewer comments were added, this is where they would be contained. The last file here in our listing is our data file. You'll see it's of the type QDS Automated Interview Data File. It has the extension .qad. Again, that's important to note. And because we set the ACASI build option to create a unique data file for every interview, it has automatically been renamed to include our ID number, which we entered, which was 1111, plus a date and a timestamp. Note that the timestamp even includes seconds, so it's always going to be unique. This can often be a very good build option to set to assist you in data management. To learn more about QDS data files and data management with the Warehouse Manager, see QDS Online Help or other QDS Learning videos.